even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Hey, welcome to the Author Brand Show. I'm your host, Doug Crowe. We're going to be talking to a very special guest today. And of course, he's going to have something intelligent, informative to tell us. That's just a joke there, that pre-roll. And you're going to want to take notes. If you don't, you can check the show notes below and check them out there. Our guest today is the founder and CEO of Tourmaline Networks. It's a software engineering firm that developed the first email app for a smartphone. I'm really curious about that. Our guest is an angel investor. He's invested in more than 50 startups. He's served on boards of profit and nonprofit organizations. He has a BS in engineering from Harvey Mudd College and an MSEE from San Diego University. So without further ado, welcome to our show today, Mr. Eric Johnson. Eric, how are you?
Great.
Terrific. Glad to have you on the show today. 50 startups, pretty impressive. I'm guessing there's some secret formula you can share with us in a minute.
Secret formula is pick the right ones.
Okay.
And then keep track of what you invested in later.
Okay. Well, that's great for investors. We're going to talk about the actual startup world today a little bit. I love to talk about those because no matter where you are, people are always restarting themselves up. So we'll chat about that. And I think you mentioned before the show started, one key element above all else, which can spell success or failure for a company, and most people miss it because it's way too close to who they are. That's a hint. Don't say anything yet. We'll cover that in a minute. So if you have a business and you're concerned about starting or growth, we're going to help you with that. You might not like the answer, but it's okay. So Eric, how did you get involved in the engineering or in your whole history here? You got started in tech world. Tell us how you got started with that.
10th grade. My roommate at high school, his dad gave him a Trash 80 computer. It's otherwise known as a TRS-80. He didn't touch it. I took it and started writing programs in BASIC, saved to a cassette tape.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I just dated myself.
Yeah, you did. That's okay. Well, cassette tape's better than what was before cassette tape? So was that the big old discs or the 5?
No, that'd be the punch cards.
Punch cards. Okay. Go back another decade.
Yeah.
Terrific. So, but you've had a great history here. You started at an early age with that. What got you? I'm going to jump ahead. We'll come back to the midterm of your life. I'm really curious about the startup world. You got involved with that. What was your first one that you invested in?
I guess myself, right?
Your own, right? Okay.
The company, I was head of engineering, medium-sized company in San Diego, just went through a very painful bankruptcy. I had to lay off everyone, and so I just contacted a few of my engineering buddies and said, it cannot possibly be worse than just what we just went through. Let's start our own company.
Wow.
And now we had zero experience in startups. Sure.
Okay. Right. You're just a bunch of smart guys who said it can't be that hard, huh?
Well, I went to the bookstore because this was before Amazon, and I bought a book. And the title was How to Start and Incorporate a Business in California. That was my beginning.
What was that business? The first one you started? What was the name of it?
It was a consulting company, and you had trouble. Tourmaline Networks. Why Tourmaline? Because I also surf. I still like to surf, ocean surf, and Tourmaline is a pretty well-known surf break in San Diego. And also, the URL was not taken. Very important at the time.
That helps. Yeah. Okay. So you're just consulting on what kind of stuff? The software or the mobile stuff?
Anything we could find. We launched this company right before the NASDAQ crashed. So you just did whatever you could.
That's right. Okay. And so tell me about this first email app for a smartphone. What was that? Who used it? What decade was that when you did that one?
That was, we're in the 90s still, I think, or no, early 2000s now. Sorry. And this is when the first smartphone just launched, the Kyocera. And we remember that one now. Yeah. And we went to the first developers conference, it's called, if you're a software engineer, and they handed out the first SDK, software developer kit, that was on a 5-inch floppy drive, remember, floppy disk. And we're running this little consulting company, and I'm just like, you have to call me like every hour so I can tell you if there's any been interesting emails arrived or whatever. I have no other way of communicating with all these consultants in the field.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys working for me, he played with the SDK and he says, I think I can route our email to our new Kyocera phones. I'm like, go for it. And he got it working. And for anyone who's a program out there, he only had 64K of memory to work at with. This is just had a very efficient program. He got it working, and we called it Soda Pop Mail. And we were just using it, among ourselves. And then he happened to show it to someone at Qualcomm, who at the time launched the first app store.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you got this working, because we're under contractual obligation to deliver this product to AT&T. So, and the rest is history.
So you developed internally for yourselves to use. Showed the Qualcomm. They said they had to produce something similar for AT&T soon.
They had to have an email app for AT&T in literally weeks or months. So we had a quick deal was struck, and then we were licensing this product for $2 a month to many thousands of customers overnight. It was kind of fun getting that check.
Yeah. How long did that last before?
A couple months, and then we were acquired. So,
Okay.
and that was the beginning of smartphones and downloadable apps. And when I tell my children today, oh yeah, I made one of the first, apps on the phones, they're just like, right, Dad, sure.
They don't believe you?
Well, they sort of believe me, I guess.
But there was no graphics. It was just email. So a little
it was a text application. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. Well, was this before like the Palm Pilot stuff, or
nah? This was in parallel. If you had a BlackBerry back then, but remember, it was not quite the same. It was a closed ecosystem, and I never owned one. I'm not even sure how you installed apps on it. Certainly did not have a store you could download from, and they were very expensive at the time.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember. Usually early adopt those things. I had a Palm Pilot, I had a BlackBerry. I didn't get one of the first iPhones. I waited till like number 3 or 6 came out before I got one of those. But
yeah. And then Apple came out and launched their store, and the rest of is history there. Yeah.
Okay. So you had a healthy exit. Is that when you started investing in other companies, or you just do another company?
Absolutely. It was not a huge exit, but I kind of looked at the money I'd made, and I talked with my wife. Her career was doing well, and I said, I really don't have to work anymore in a traditional sense, right?
Yeah,
we have 3 kids at home. Here's the deal. I'll stay at home, watch the kids, and you let me, be this angel investor type of person.
Right. Nice. Yeah. Right.
So
you must. How many deals do you think you've looked at over the years as an angel investor?
Oh, hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what were some of the best ones that you've done? The winners that you like? Wow, this is going well.
There's been some moderate successes, and they just, I guess sometimes they're just obscure. I mean, when I reflect back on my angel career, it was a bit of a handicap. San Diego is a beautiful place and good surfing, but it was in Silicon Valley, right? Yeah. So I kind of missed that way, which is fine, because back then you tended to invest locally.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I'm a member. I have an account with Angel List or whatever, and I invest all over the place just from my my room right here.
Sure.
But back then it was more in person.
Right.
Okay. And so, there was no really big name successes back then.
And that's one of the things that I when I talk to my other friends in that world, they're always looking for the unicorn, but they're bypassing like companies that can do really well without having to become bazillionaires. They can just do a nice 5 or 10x. Is that still do some angels look at something which is more modest or not?
Absolutely. I'd be very happy. That's kind of what I look for right now. I mean, a company I'm involved with right now is an e-bike company, and if I get 10x return on that, I'm very happy.
Right.
And things like that. I'm not shooting for a million X. I think maybe that day will come again. I don't know. Maybe if you invested early in AI right now, you're doing very well. But
yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll see. All right. So e-bike company is one that comes to mind. It was a local company, local people doing it, or what?
Well, everything's kind of virtual. I guess it's local, but the CMO lives in Austin, the CEO lives in San Diego, whatever. It all works.
Right. Okay. And then we'll come back to the successes. I want to hear about a clunker too. Do you have any something you thought this is gonna go great, and it totally tanked?
Absolutely. And I don't want to name specific names.
No, we won't name names. Just
one particular company that I thought for certain had a really good algorithm for making cell phones more efficient, consume less power.
Yeah.
wasn't true. Just wasn't true in the end. That's all I can say. just
So what happened? Why was it untrue? Did they made a mistake, or was it a lie? I mean, what happened to it?
I think that in the beginning they thought they could do it. And
Yeah.
then, and eventually, you start to realize this problem is much harder than you thought,
Yeah.
and maybe wasn't being quite truthful anymore. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
in this type of
Right.
situation. People, and I acknowledge, when you're a company and you're starting to flounder and you're losing money, maybe you start stretching the truth to keep it alive a bit
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I worked at a startup that was called Power Clip. It was a cell phone holder that also charged your phone for you. And this
Right.
was StarTAC times, so the StarTAC, the flip phone, and the Nokia days. So it was battery power was much higher consumption then, and batteries weren't as good. So it had a
Right.
lot of legs, but the development couldn't keep up with the amount of new phones that were coming out from the provider. So it didn't work out well. But they've raised a few $1 million, but que sera, sera. It's always work out. So at the beginning of the show, we talked offline about the key thing, right? There's people always look at money and the executive team and the idea, the marketing, all these things that make a startup either, sink or swim. And you told me one key secret. There's one thing that of over all those things that always makes the biggest difference and could be a linchpin for success. And you said it was
the CEO, the person in charge. Yeah.
CEO, first charge. And I'm going to make a distinction between the CEO and a founder. Yes.
Yes. I mean, the CEO could be the founder. I was a CEO founder.
Right.
And in small companies, they tend to be CEO founder.
Yeah.
What do I mean? If I look at all my successes and losses, the patterns becoming clear that a successful startup CEO, that's a smart person, that's a given, but also has to be a very hardworking person, not crazy hours, but you got to focus.
Right.
And really important, this person needs to be able to multitask and be very efficient.
Right.
And start using and attracting other talented people. And then it starts multiplying the effect there.
Yeah.
And then the word that always comes to my mind is pivot, is that the good CEO will recognize when you're going down a dead end and say, all right, turn right. We need to make a change to this product here and go after this market.
Right.
And that's the pattern I recognize. There's companies I've invested in where the CEOs are very smart, but just can't finish a product, for example. Or they develop the wrong product. There's no customers actually willing to pay for it. Problem.
Right. Right. How are you able to discern that when you're looking, a pitch deck and just chat with them? Can you have some specific questions or due diligence you do to find that out?
That's a really good question, because if it's a true startup and this person has never done it before, who knows, right? Now, if the person has a proven track record, they're probably not going to come to angel investors, are they? So,
interesting.
They will probably go straight to some VC if they have such a strong track record. They don't,
right?
Or they have their own money to invest in the company to start it.
Right. So, what do you do then to find those, or try to find those golden nuggets when you're doing it? How do you find out?
You just you can talk, you can have them explain the business plan. You just got to get to know them, I think.
Yeah, right.
There's the TV shows where they do the 10-minute pitches. I've been through that as well, and that's kind of a ridiculous filter, really.
Well, yeah, that's entertainment. That's not real.
Correct.
Yeah, I know that. I hope people understand that, right? When you watch Shark Tank, it's not anything to do with the real world of startups. It's just it's a completely different environment for sure. And it's I read something that they actually tape like an hour or two for each of those segments, and it's highly edited down those 10 minutes just for the entertainment value, right? Because it's interesting stuff. Is there any deals that you've worked on that you were surprised that it did so well? You thought, hey, I'll give it a Hail Mary, but it did better than expected?
That would be the ones that wildly exceeded my expectation as I did get involved in the crypto space, not in a wild, you know, speculative stage, but I actually early on
Mm-hmm.
looked at a couple and said, and one of them they made a lot of sense to me was Filecoin at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and I got a really nice exit out of that one.
Okay.
It helps that with my engineering background. I also have a background strong economically because that's why I wrote my book.
Yeah.
I also understand encryption and just all the pieces together. And when my son said, "Hey, Dad, read this white paper on Bitcoin," I said, "Well, this is interesting."
Yeah.
And I just made my standard investment in that space. I just
Uh-huh.
had a standard amount I put in startups.
Right.
And my son said, "Are you crazy?" I go, "It's just another startup in my
Yeah.
mind.
Right.
That's all it is."
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I probably did that with about 5 or 6 other cryptos, just my
Yeah.
standard investment amount, and most went nowhere, and some did really well. But
And let people know how that works in your world as a, as an investor, that you spread yourself out amongst, like, how many deals will you spread out knowing that you're going to lose a bunch and make something on one or two or three? How's it work?
well, the general rule of thumb is about 10%, and I believe that has proven itself with me at least. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I mean most startup investments just they don't fail, they don't succeed, they
Right.
just slowly go nowhere from an investor point of view.
Yeah.
And every
Right.
once in a while, I have to go through my list and say, "Hey, I haven't heard from this company for a year," and I got to reach out
Yeah.
and ping them and say, "Are you guys still
Right.
alive? What's going
Yeah.
on?" You know.
Yeah.
And when they fail, good. I have my tax write-off now, even though it's been diluted by inflation. And if
Right.
they're still alive but barely alive, I kind of say, "Hey, you guys sure you don't want to shut things down?"
You need a tax break. Shut down.
I know. And
Do
but
you? Yeah. Do you
anyway,
ever offer advisory services when you invest like that, or does it depend on the deal?
most investments are passive. You can't
Yeah.
possibly keep track of all of them. But some I
Mhm.
do through indirectly through syndicates now, which I
Yeah.
kind of like because
Mhm.
they are now the one that very actively monitors things. And I've
Sure.
had some successes through syndicates. I like to
Right.
invest in things that are space and rocket related,
Yeah.
and those are going quite well.
Mhm.
And but then the few I'm directly involved in, I'm on the board. Yeah, I'm just all over them. You
Yeah.
know,
Of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Is that was that the gestation for the book that you're going to talk about
Oh
here?
no, that book's completely independent. No, that
Okay. Let's talk about your book then.
oh sure. So the book, it's What the Hell is an Economy, which my artist suggested I call it. And so the I wrote that book actually started with notes from my children.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is after I've had financial success and I'm starting to think, "Yeah, I kind of want my children to, take care of me when I get older and not squander all my money."
Yeah. Good
So
luck with
so
that.
I know. So I started writing notes, on because I had taken an interest when the housing market collapsed.
Yeah.
And I asked, I'm just a pure engineer, and I'm like, wow, I didn't see this one coming.
Yeah.
Why was that? So I just started reading books in economics and kept reading and started holding these bi-weekly gatherings at my house where all we could do was talk economics, no
Huh.
politics, and I'd
Yeah.
give you free drinks. I
Uh-huh.
did that for years.
Huh.
And just between those meetings and reading the books, I started to realize just how powerful this information is.
Yeah.
You know, it probably won't help you as a startup unless you're a startup in the financial space. I have invested in several of those.
Right.
Um, but mostly it's just, once you do have, a nest egg of any type, it just brings you peace of mind. I can, when I read a paper, I kind of know exactly what's going on now with the whole interest rates and
Yeah.
unemployment rates and, all the scary news out there. But I
Sure.
doesn't bother me. I just sip my coffee and keep reading. It's like, oh, this is all very predictable.
Yeah.
So, but it's not the most interesting topic in the world,
Well,
economics.
it depends. If you're into numbers, it can be. And since you are very comfortable with things that are going on, give us your prediction. I think it's going to get better or worse in 2023.
Well, I
What
think
issues
that
are.
interest rates are going to continue to creep up. That's no
Mhm.
secret there, which of course has a short-term diminishing
Yeah.
uh, power or whatever force
Mhm.
on housing prices. We all know housing prices are going to settle down a bit.
Mhm.
Um, the really the one that's really hard to predict is in the long term is if this inflation continues, of course, everything goes up in price.
Sure. Yeah.
And unless your wages and salaries are keeping up, it's people might just find it a little harder to make ends meet, and
Yeah.
what bothers me a lot is every year there's this like, record amount of spending or, the stock
Right.
market's an all-time high. And I'm like, well, of course, with 6% inflation, everything keeps going up in price, whether
Yeah.
it's eggs or stock markets or whatever.
Mhm. Right.
It all boils down to the standard of living.
Mhm.
Is the
Mhm.
standard of living improving for people on average? I'd say probably not. I think it's kind of slightly diminishing. Things are
Mhm.
just getting a little harder. And on
Yeah.
top of that, we have some big I mean, COVID just really was a big economic
It
hit
was
for
a
us.
wild card, right? We didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
housing went crazy and jobs went down. It was weird. Yeah. Very
Yeah, that
strange.
was that was a tough one for us to absorb as an economy. And now, there's this big push to make the world, carbon neutral. That's going to be incredibly economically expensive to
Yeah.
achieve.
Right.
And do we
Right.
really have the willpower to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know either. So your book was kind of written for your kids or for yourself, for legacy, or who's the audience for this? So what the
Well,
hell is
that's
an
why
economy?
my children are like 20 to 30 something. And so,
Yeah.
yes, their initial target was millennials.
Okay.
Because I figured someone who's older, they're not going to read, they're not interested in economics
Yeah.
anymore. But I figured,
Right.
hey, if you're young and just starting off, this is probably valuable information moving
Sure.
forward.
Yeah.
Now, I have found though that I have readers of all ages, except
Hmm.
I don't think there's any high school level yet, though. But
Right. Okay. All
yeah.
right. Great. So it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you can
Yeah,
get it.
I tried the hard copy first. I self-publish, and making a hard copy
Hmm.
book is kind of painful,
It is.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Kindle is really easy, and I
Very
can
much
sell
so.
it really cheap because I'm not interested in making money in a book. I'm just
Yeah.
getting the word out, and that
Right.
price is actually the minimum Amazon will let me charge. So
Which is what? How much?
$2.99 for the
299.
Kindle.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go lower if
What
I
the
could.
hell is an economy? You can go to whatthehellsanaconomy.com, correct?
Yeah, it's like that. WTH
Oh,
and
WTH,
then
excuse me, I'm
spell
seeing
out
that. Okay, yeah.
is an economy.com.
Just click in the show notes below, folks. All the exact URLs there. Don't listen to what I say. Eric's got it right. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Any last words of wisdom for people who are starting up or want to understand the economy?
Startups, just go for it and
Hmm.
don't give up.
Right,
Okay. I have such admiration for
right.
people that choose to be an entrepreneur. It's
Yeah.
critical to our economy, to our society, is what
Hmm.
separates us from the rest of the world
Right.
is our culture of entrepreneurism, and it should be embraced.
That's right. Oh, and I don't think you actually called out the one constant fail with most startups. Do we say it was the CEO? I don't know if we said that.
Yeah, it kind of
That's the
boils down
common
to the
thread,
CEO
right?
again. Yeah. Well, specifically, it fails when you run out of money. And the question is, why
Yeah.
did you run out of money?
Yeah. Who's
Yeah.
in charge of that? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did the investors not decide to pony up more?
Right.
They keep it
Yeah.
going.
Confidence in the leadership, the big
Yeah.
one. Terrific, Eric. Thank you so much for being on the show today, folks. Go to WTHisAneconomy.com. In the show notes below. Check out Eric's book, Smart Man. And if you want to learn about investing in companies, don't call him. I guess you don't want to talk about that. No. Yes.
Oh, no, absolutely reach out to me from my
Okay.
website.
Great.
Ask me questions. I'll
All right.
answer.
Appreciate that so much. Thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
You bet. And that concludes our show for today, an Author Your Brand show. You're going to want to take notes. And if you didn't take notes, click below. They're all there for your viewing. And check out Eric's book. Looks like a winner. Thanks again. See you next time.